And you find yourself at a certain pedestal whereby you feel that you are above the sky when our boys are winning. And then when you begin to see people commit this kind of errors, you will ask yourself, but do I belong to this country anymore? Like Mr. Jarvis was saying, the past glories come to you. You are reminiscent of what used to happen in the past. You make a panoramic view of what used to happen in the past. How glorious we used to be. How the head of state used to receive these boys. And then after condemning all the other sectors in Cameroon, it is only the football, the Lions, the head of state will say, this is our boys, we are proud of them. And then each and every one should learn from the fighting spirit of the Lions. And then when we come to this point whereby we are losing even the Lions, what we had as our own. We are losing all that. And then at the end of it, you answer us on screen. We are losing our football to gain what? So the lesson we should gain from this is that we should go back to that our fighting spirit. We cannot win football if we do not have the fighting spirit. If we think that we will cover ourselves with a kind of mysterious cloth or whatsoever and take some concoction from which doctors to be able to win football, let us say no. Before you can win football by using concoction, you need to be able to exhibit your skills. Your skills need to come first. If football was only concoction and witch doctor, I will also enter the field. Don't I know where to go and take it? I also know the picnic. I know where I can go and take them. So let us be able to exhibit and leave football to footballers. Let these boys play. Let us give them a free hand.
And politics to politicians.
Get out of it. Because the way that, I saw the government officials wanting to have and to Cameroon to win this cup at all costs, I knew that we were going to politicize this thing. Because it was not reasonable. They took it as if either they won or, so you should be objective in this issue and leave our boys play our football, draw our lessons. We had beautiful stadium, and people have congratulated us for having this, as they say in French, on a muelo mayo. Because look at Japuma, look at even the University Stadium in Douala, look at those stadiums that we have actually wasted. Spend a lot of, I cannot say wasted. We are wasted because we were supposed at least to show proof of the money that we are spending in this thing, but we are not showing proof of it. We have wasted the money for this year. But we hope that in 2022, okay, with the African Nations Cup, let us hope that something better will happen and we should be able to correct the mistakes of today.
Est-ce qu'il y a des leçons à tirer sur l'échec du Cameroun? Oui.
Il y aura toujours des leçons à tirer, même lorsqu'on a remporté la victoire. Vous pouvez remporter la victoire à un score d'1-0. Vous pouvez toujours vous poser la question juste après le match que pourquoi n'avons-nous pas gagné avec la manière? Pourquoi on n'a pas eu un jeu qui pouvait peut-être nous permettre de gagner à 8-0? Donc il y a toujours des leçons à tirer. Mais pour l'instant, et comme cela se fait de coutume et d'usage, nous ne pouvons pas tout de suite tirer toutes les leçons parce que nos Lions sont encore en compétition. Parce que ce match de classement est aussi un match très important. Donc, de ce fait, nous réservons pour l'instant de tirer les leçons. Parce que nous trouvons que nous devrions les encourager à se remettre à l'entraînement, à se préparer pour ce match de samedi. Et donc les Camerounais veulent la victoire. Nous les Camerounais, nous voulons la victoire samedi prochain. Nous les Camerounais, nous attendons d'eux qu'ils continuent à nous démontrer toute l'envie et ce qu'on appelle le fighting spirit qu'ils ont démontré lors de tout le reste des matchs tels que les quarts de finale et les matchs de poule et tout, en se disant que le match d'hier était juste un triste souvenir à oublier. Mais ensuite, maintenant, nous tirerons toutes les leçons nécessaires. Parce que ces leçons sont sur plusieurs ordres. Ces leçons peuvent être sur le plan technique, sur le plan individuel, sur le plan d'accompagnement, sur le plan de l'encadrement, et même sur le plan de la motivation, de la galvanisation de nos troupes. Donc, l'heure n'est pas à ce niveau-là. Pour l'instant, nous allons tirer toutes les leçons nécessaires. Moi, j'ai vu, pour ceux qui disent que les Lions doivent seulement être entourés par ceux qui peuvent avoir accès, c'est seulement les anciennes gloires. Certes, mais nous avons vu nos anciennes gloires encourager nos Lions à prime. Samuel Eto'o, son Excellence Albert Roger Mila et tous les autres joueurs. Mais on ne peut pas dire ou bien interdire à l'équipe d'encadrement d'avoir aussi la possibilité de venir motiver et encourager ou transmettre un message qui peut galvaniser les troupes, les surmotiver. C'est-à-dire, ce serait véritablement une aberration d'imaginer que ces gars qui sont en train de jouer vont jouer en vase clos, à deux clos, de telle façon que aucun membre du gouvernement, pas d'encouragement, pas de ceci. Mais est-ce que vous savez que les différents encouragements venus des plus hautes autorités de l'État relèvent déjà d'un miroir qui permet à ces joueurs de savoir que, ah ben tiens, nous ne sommes pas seuls. Même le président de la République, son Excellence M. Paul Biya, nous regarde. Alors, nous allons faire plaisir à notre président. Nous allons démontrer à tous les Camerounais, à toute la nation qu'ils ont eu raison de croire en nous. Donc, c'est ce que nous pouvons dire sur ce plan-là.
Okay, we are going to move straight to our second topic for tonight. We hope the sound problem has been rectified for some persons who complained earlier that they were not getting what we were saying. I'll start with you, Dr. Michael. You went through the human rights report situation for 2020 by Stand Up for Cameroon, their first appraiser.
Yes, I would like to thank the Stand Up for Cameroon. I browsed through that report, and it was quite an objective report. That is a report that they took time to write, and I was particularly interested in the way that they got their facts. First, they talked about getting facts from the NGOs on the ground, and they got interviews with victims, and they were able to produce the report that they produced. And I was so interested in how this report was actually discomboted, and how they dissected their report, and what results they were bringing out, or what proposals they were bringing out. And one of the first things that I got from the report was, the issue of violation of civil and political rights. And I looked at this, and I meditated myself to see exactly what we were talking about there. And it is true that in Cameroon, we have had problem of freedom of association, because during this period of insecurity in Cameroon, we have barely freedom, people barely associate freely. And this report didn't only touch on the situation in Southwest and Northwest. They went as far as with the Boko Haram and with the rebels or the Central Africa who are hitting the East and over North. So, from this report, you realize that Cameroon is deep, has been engulfed in real insecurity. And then you are asking yourself, how are we surviving? Because from this report, you see that Cameroon is actually in a mire where escape seems to be very, very chimerical. So you see from the issue of violation of civil and political rights, they talk about freedom to hold public meetings and protests. It's not, because we have seen in the past whereby political parties do not have freedom to protest, or once you are protesting, there's that law, 2014 anti-terrorism law, that hangs on you. So people are not free to express themselves. That was, issues of violation of civil and political rights. And then they when they talk about illegal and arbitrary arrest, which of course it is true. We and this is not only about the issue of the Anglophone region. They have touched on the issue of the Boko Haram, whereby we have had a lot of people who have been arbitrarily arrested, maybe just because they have expressed their views on the issue of Boko Haram. We have some two young boys who are gnashing their teeth in jail, and they have been slammed 10 years just because they made a joke about Boko Haram. So this is found in that report. They also arbitrary arrest on the Anglophone crisis, on Anglophone activists. It suffices for you to show some sign. I was talking to a young boy yesterday. He said he visited a town in Bamenda. And since the military actually play psychologically, they pointed at me and said, "This guy, you are new here," and he was almost being arrested before the guy showed his strong knowledge on the language, in French language, and he was able to discuss with them. So if he didn't do that, he will have been taken away. So the issue of arbitrary arrest for no just cause. And there's also issue of the protests of the 22nd of September 2020 of the members of the CRM, Cameroon Renaissance Movement. You see that many of them were arbitrarily arrested. I mean, you will not protest, and I mean, what is protest? Protests just simply may want to express their views. And we have seen in other countries where people protest and the military is there to be able to guide them, you know, through their protests. They hold their placards, they hold their streamers, and then you just show and say this. And I'm sure that that's what was on the 22nd of September 2020. But rather, people were met with stiff resistance, and many of them are still in prison today because they were arbitrarily arrested. You also have in that report, I saw the issue of conditions in detention. It is also very, very appealing to see the way the conditions under which people are actually kept in these detention centers. Some of them are in solitary confinement. You know, you are there where nobody actually knows where you are. Your family is even looking for you. You are being tortured. There's refusal of medical treatment, and nobody cares. And nobody knows about where you are. So it is a terrible thing. There is also in that report as one of the issues of violation of human rights is, I mean, the issue of disappearance. You are with your brother or whatever, just find out he just disappears and nobody knows where he is. And maybe after serious investigation, you find that he's either in a set or in. We have the case of Samuel Wazizi, who actually to the point of he died before exactly people knew where he was. So I think that that report actually is an eye opener to the world. We in that report I also saw the issue of villages burnt down. We have found villages burned down by Boko Haram. We have villages burned down in the Angvon crisis. These are also acts of inhuman acts that need to be condemned. And I think that we don't have to stay indifferent to that. Like someone said, if those who stay indifferent to torture, to violation of human rights, indirectly are supporting those acts. And therefore, you don't need to stay mute. When you stay mute, it means that you are corroborating to those acts. We need to talk out this. We need to speak out this thing. And that is why when we saw the movement in the U.S. with Rosa Parks, when the blacks had to rise up, it's because somebody stood up. You know, Rosa Parks, who refused to give her seat to a white, it was the time when she said, we are born so much for so long and time, and this has to stop. I think that we need to speak out this thing. We also have the issue of school attacks. Yes, which is something that has been going on, especially in the Northwest region, whereby you just find schools being attacked, students, school boycott, teachers and students who are attacked. People don't want students to go to school. What if you don't want students to go to school? What do you want them to be doing? That's the question. What future are you building for the people? I think that we need to condemn this. These are inhuman acts, and we need to condemn all these things. Schools need to be open. Schools need to go on. Students need to go to school. And we have issue of extrajudicial killings. We have had extrajudicial killings at Ngabu. We have had the Kumba killings and all those things. These are inhuman acts that we all need to condemn. So I really need to give 90% to this report, especially from Stand Up Cameroon, that they have taken a lot of time to be able to dissect and they have given salient example for anybody who cares to know and who cares to take it down and to follow whoever has committed the act. I mean, they have given examples that are worth the examples that are glaring, and that if we look at this and we take this into consideration, I think that we can be able to correct what has been going on and what has been going wrong in the light of the Boko Haram, in the light of the rebel leader of Central Africa in the East, in the light of the Anglophone region. We can be able to sit now down and be able to take people to book. You know, we need especially to bring people to book, let people who have committed this act be able to go in for. We need to call people to answer their act. As much as we do not call people to answer our act, it is as if we are encouraging them to go more and more. We have already seen the perpetrators of these acts. What are we going to do with the perpetrators? We have seen those, we are just learned that the head of state get over 80 million francs to those in Ngabu. Well, it's a welcome act. It's a welcome gesture from the head of state. But when we have to support those who have undergone these years, those who have undergone this kind of dirty acts from people, what measures are we taking to be able to preempt, to be able to prevent? what is to come in
Oui,
future.
monsieur Jean-Claude, vous sûrement vous avez aussi lu le rapport. Est-ce que vous avez l'impression que la situation des droits de l'homme sont du bon côté pour l'année 2020 par rapport au rapport qui a été rendu public hier par Stand Up for Cameroun?
Il y a de quoi s'interroger par rapport à la perception et à la mise en œuvre des droits de l'homme, des uns et des autres. N'oublions pas que il existe des droits de l'homme individuel et il existe des droits de l'homme collectif. Et nous pouvons prendre quelques familles de niveau de considération des droits de l'homme et apprécier le cadre de responsabilité individuelle et de responsabilité collective dans le recul ou l'amélioration des conditions d'exercice des droits de l'homme. Prenons le cas par exemple du droit à la vie. Avec le droit à la vie c'est fondamental. La vie c'est essentiel. Et lorsqu'on décide, de par le fait qu'on a une machette, de par le fait qu'on peut faire l'usage d'une arme blanche ou d'une arme à feu ou d'une arme à répétition, décider d'ôter la vie. Je vois par exemple le cas de notre sœur Comfort de Mouyoka. Je vois le cas de nos enfants de Kumba qui ont été massacrés. Et je vois plein d'autres cas de nos concitoyens des régions du nord-ouest, sud-ouest, de la zone de l'extrême nord, avec les exactions de Boko Haram par les attentats terroristes. C'est le droit à la vie, il y a un recul à ce niveau-là. Le droit à la dignité. Lorsque je vois des enfants qui sont allés à l'école et qui ont été déshabillés, et on leur a laissé rentrer nus, ça voudrait dire que la dignité a pris du recul dans cette zone, dans cet endroit par certains. Mais nous nous félicitons que ce n'est pas tous les Camerounais qui sont ici. Et que certains qui ont pris ces postures sont bien en situation minoritaire et que la collaboration avec les populations est en train de permettre à ce que nos forces de défense et de sécurité sont en train d'avoir le contrôle de la situation. Et ce qui voudrait dire que l'amélioration également du droit à la dignité, ça passera aussi par l'éducation, par les mentalités. Et là, ceci me permet d'arriver au droit à l'éducation. Mon confrère copanéliste vient de l'évoquer, que tout le monde a droit à l'éducation, parce qu'en réalité, sans l'éducation, qu'est-ce que nous pouvons imaginer avoir comme société de demain? Qu'est-ce que nous pouvons imaginer construire, nous qui voulons un pays émergent à l'horizon 2035? Tout le monde a droit à l'éducation. On ne doit pas empêcher nos enfants d'aller à l'éducation, d'aller s'instruire, d'aller à l'école. Et lorsqu'ils vont à l'école, avec tous les efforts consentis par les parents, on s'en va les tuer, les assassiner sur les tables bancs, dans leur salle de classe, en présence de tous leurs amis. Là, nous disons non. C'est donc des éléments à condamner. Le droit à la santé. Nous connaissons la pandémie du Covid-19 aujourd'hui. Et nous savons combien de fois, même les pays développés et avancés sont en train de se battre pour continuer à garantir le droit à la santé. Et lorsqu'on est dans un pays béni des dieux, et que malgré nos moyens qui sont réduits, nous arrivons à faire face à des pandémies. Et nous avons donc certains de nos concitoyens qui décident de brûler les hôpitaux. Nous n'en avons même pas d'abord assez et ils décident de les brûler. Ça voudrait dire qu'ils sont en train de porter atteinte au droit à la santé. Parce que c'est à travers ces institutions sanitaires publiques et privées que nous pouvons, au cas de besoin, pouvoir avoir accès à des soins de manière équitable. Donc, nous pouvons dire donc que un certain nombre de responsabilités sont établies et faites par rapport à toutes ces grandes familles de droit et que les uns les autres reviennent et se regardent à travers le mur en disant « Nous nous sommes trompés. Nous nous sommes trompés d'adversaire. Nous nous sommes trompés de cible. C'est pas notre concitoyen. C'est pas notre frère. C'est pas notre sœur qui est notre adversaire. Nous devrions faire face à tous les ennemis de la République et s'entretuer entre nous.
Okay.
Voilà. Donc c'est ce que...
Yeah. Now, I want us to go straight to urgent areas of action for the Cameroonian authorities. They want the Cameroonian authorities to work on this. They want the Cameroonian authorities to end violence against civilians through collective punitive operations by the defense and security forces. It is absolutely important that firm instructions are given to local authorities and security forces on the issue of violence against civilians. The violence is recurrent and creates serious damages. It is imperative that they stop and that systematic punishments be taken when they occur. I'm sure you know what punitive sanctions concern. That a group of 4 persons engage in a crime and the entire community is punished.
Yeah, in war they call that collateral damage, as they always call it. I think I'm happy with the report in one phrase that it was on both sides. Both sides were called to order. It was not like just the government or calling just the separatists. It was like calling everybody together, which does make the fact that the report stands for the objective of Cameroon moving forward, and regardless of taking side. And the punitive punishment or collective collateral damage we see is common in war and is common in conflict. Those are the elements that indicate the gravity of the conflict. If there should be an immediate intervention, if there should be an immediate sanction, if there should be acts of selective punishment for individuals at both sides, sponsoring or advocating for these punitive actions. And one thing I was just a bit uncomfortable is that we have seen how government officials within the North and Southwest region, some actually decide to give punitive punishment to everybody. And especially in the Northwest and Southwest region, like what happened in Balangi today, we were told that the non-state arm would block the road for 7 hours. But after this, you will see punitive punishment will come for even the locals who probably believe in the one and indivisible Cameroon. And the same thing too with the separatists. When somebody does something, you see a punitive punishment. But the question is, how will this punitive punishment be stopped? How can these forces of law and order stop this punitive punishment? It all begins with dialogue and effective negotiation as far as this is concerned, because the only way that can mitigate the violence in the North and Southwest region, it is not just an aspect of writing letters or an aspect of talking that punitive punishment should stop. It's an action of a free will, and that free will comes with an effective dialogue, an effective listening, an effective interest. I see that the reason of punitive punishment is coming because both sides have neglected the interests of the people and are going for their personal ego, are going for their personal interest to see that, hey, let it be known that I won this war. Let it be known that I'm the person commanding this area. Let it be known that I am the person doing this at the detriment of the interest. Mr. Leo, in all of your plateau or platform regarding such a topic, I have always been saying this, that all front, regardless whether you are a separatist, you are a government, minister, you are a federalist, everybody, the initial phrase is that they stand for one thing, that's the interest of Cameroonians. They want the best of Cameroonians, but they have different roads. But because of the infighting in both sides, within the government infighting, within the separatist infighting, within the federalist infighting, it has helped now to kill the interests of the people. They are not looking at the interest, they are looking at the road in which they want to follow. The only way punitive punishment will stop is when all those stakeholders start looking at the interests of the people, because the security forces, they are there. Why are they there? They are there because they want to protect the common man who is in Mamu. They want to protect the lives and property of those who are in Kikakilaki. They want to protect the lives and property from those who are in Ngunuku. They want to protect the lives and property for those who are in Widikumwe village. That's why they are there. That's the interest. If you go and do collective punishment, it just shows that you are no longer there for the interests of the people. You see that you are killing the same interests that you are fighting for. The same thing with the separatists. If you claim you are advocating for the independence or the restoration of the former Southern Cameroon, you stop punitive punishment in your locality. You stop kidnappings, you stop all those things. So the issue of punitive punishment is coming when people lost the interest, the general interest, and are going for their private interest, which are sometimes can be motivated by the economy of the war or by investitures who believes that if punitive punishment is done, there will be reparation, there will be visit, there will be done, there will be this, there will be that, and a lot of things are put into place. So to me, the only way the government or the non-state armed groups can stop punitive punishment is when they start looking at the interest of the common man. Because if you don't look at that interest, then you are not solving the problem. Again, like what happened today in Balangi, just be listening. You will see punitive punishment. If the military arrests a non-state armed group, and you see the non-state armed groups come to that quarter and sometimes cause havoc, that there are a lot of blackouts in blacklegs in that community, and that people are kidnapped, people are doing that. You open your shop, it's a problem. Based on the fact that you're afraid that the government will punish you. At the end of the day, we have lost interest. So if we go back, all the stakeholders should go back to the interest. You see that violence will gradually decline. You will not tell someone not to do punitive punishment, because you will start moving down gradually. Another reason I think we are failing why we see punitive punishment is the training that's been given on both sides. The training, how are they being trained? Sometimes I always say it's difficult for these men and women in uniform, because when you are in the war front with the combatant that has no weapon, that has no uniform, or they cannot be properly identified, it's difficult. You either killed or get killed, because you don't know who is a hostile and who is not a hostile, especially in that kind of environment that we have in the north and southwest region. But however, you should not go and kill someone who have been arrested. If you have arrested somebody, Mr. Liu, if you are arresting that person, take that person to the judge. That's why we have legal competent authority. But the sad reality there is that most of these people, at least 50% of those who are young guys who are caught within the nooks and crannies, within the north and southwest region, the judge, the military are the judge, they are the state councils, the same thing, the AMBA are the judge, they are the state councils. You ask yourself, where do they stand? Do they stand with the common man, or do they stand with their personal position? Dear brothers and sisters, to me, stand with the common man. Because if you stand with the common man, you not see the need to kidnap, you not see the need to catch a young guy and you shoot. You see the need of catching that boy, taking him to the judiciary, questioning him, and putting him in the cell, letting him face the punishment. We are paying taxes for that. To me, Mr. Liu, I think that should be the way forward.
Lots and lots of recommendations to the government, but also to the separatists. They say end violence against civilians, stop attacks on state agents, and renounce the use of arms as a political means to reach their cause.
Yes, I think that no state can win a war against its own people. We should sometimes we just mix this war. The war against the Boko Haram is not like the war in the Anglophone region. It's quite a different war. It's a different war. The war with the Boko Haram is a war against insurgents. It's a war on terrorism. But we have mistaken the crisis in the northwest and southwest region to mean that this crisis has been orchestrated by terrorists. And I denounce that word terrorist in the northwest and southwest region.
But that's not what I'm saying. That the report is calling on the fighters. That is not to government. He talked about their report towards the government, that government should do this. But they are asking those who have taken up arms to end the violence against civilians, to stop attacks on state agents, to renounce the use of arms as a political means to reach their cause.
Of course, I usually say, and I will say again, many people are criticizing for that I say most of these guys, final analysis, sometimes you don't know what they are fighting for. And there is what usually called the black leg. And we're asking ourselves what they mean by black leg. These guys, they do not have a court to judge people. And we have asked that If actually they are fighting for a just cause, they should have at least something like a court where they can be able to judge those that they take hostage. I mean, when they kidnap people, one of the things that they do, they have two things. Either you pay a ransom or you are killed. But I think that paying ransom is better rather than killing. When you kill somebody, there is no punishment that you actually efficiently mete out to somebody by killing. When you kill somebody, the person doesn't learn any lesson. And I think that report is very clear on that. You cannot pretend to support or to guide a people, to secure a people, and then at the same time, you are killing the people. A dog cannot defend his master and at the same time bite him. That is what we are saying. That you do not think that you are separatists and then you are defending the population, and then you on daily basis you are killing the people. Both the separatists and the military, the same thing is happening. Because we will have even expected from a professional military that when you catch somebody, what you should do is take the person to a rehabilitation center, or you take the person to be judged, and then the person, if he's guilty, now you give his punishment. I think that one of the things that to win a war is when you get information from the person you have caught. When you catch somebody, the first thing you should do to the person is to get information from the person. When you kill the person, you don't get an information. You get somebody, get an information from the person, and then you try to see how that person can now play on your side. But when you go on killing a civilian, you want to kill everybody at the end of it all. When you get independence, you are going to rejoice or to rule the country with who? Are you going to rule animals, or you are going to rule vegetation or whatever? So what we are saying, the report is very clear that we need to exercise some kind of, human heart in the way we are dealing with it. The way we have spilled blood, it shows as if we do not have any respect again for human being, and we think that anybody who is against us or who doesn't say something that is in line to what we think is against us. It's not necessarily that. Sometimes it is good to look at the different opinion that other people are saying, like the civilians are saying. It's not as if a civilian comes and you suspect that a civilian has gone to the military and reported that you people are here, then you just do a extrajudicial killing. That is not the case. I think that these separatists, they need to be able to have a way of finding the truth. And getting the truth with certitude before they are actually doing their act. The military too, they need to be able to find out the truth. About the civilian, about what somebody has said before actually doing the killing. So until we are able to objectively do these things and be able to do our findings and able to know that even those we think are against us can also be for us, then we are out of the question.
Monsieur Jean-Claude, oui, le rapport appelle à la communauté internationale d'utiliser les moyens de pression sur ceux qui ont commis des actions dans le camp du gouvernement et de l'autre côté.
Oui. C'est une position de la communauté internationale, donc c'est-à-dire demander à ce que justice soit faite pour l'ensemble des victimes, qu'ils soient des victimes des dégâts collatéraux dus à l'armée, ou bien qu'ils soient des victimes venant des séparatistes terroristes. Mais nous savons ici que le gouvernement, lui, il est prêt à pouvoir s'engager, à continuer à améliorer, à respecter les droits de l'homme et à savoir ce à quoi il s'est engagé. Mais ce que nous ne savons pas, c'est de l'autre côté, ceux qui mènent les exactions, qui sont des séparatistes, qui sont transformés en terroristes et en bandes armées organisées, qui sont même passés outre mesure de l'humanité à devenir comme des assassins, à devenir des assassins de nos confrères, de nos compatriotes. Cela s'engage à quoi? Et qui va les contraindre à quoi? Si la même communauté internationale n'œuvre pas à pouvoir extrader ceux qui sont les commanditaires véritables en termes de cerveaux pensants, des financiers et ceux qui entretiennent ce conflit armé des régions du nord-ouest et du sud-ouest. Nous appelons également cette communauté internationale à prendre ses responsabilités. Parce qu'en réalité, ce n'est pas des preuves qui manquent, ou bien ce n'est pas des faits qui manquent, à pouvoir dire que les commanditaires des sécessionnistes, terroristes et des assassins de nos concitoyens sont par exemple hébergés dans tel pays, ils sont connus. Bon, certains sont aux États-Unis, certains sont en Norvège, et ainsi de suite. Nous demandons à ce qu'ils puissent être extradés et qu'ils viennent répondre de leurs actes devant la juridiction camerounaise afin que justice soit faite. À chaque fois où il y a eu exaction et que l'armée ou nos forces de défense ou de sécurité ont été interpellées ou mises en cause, le président de la République a toujours commis une commission d'enquête. Nous connaissons les conclusions de la commission d'enquête de Garbou et nous connaissons la chaîne de sanctions qui a été donnée par le président de la République. Donc ce qui voudrait dire qu'il n'y a pas de tolérance zéro en matière d'exactions, en matière de bafouement des droits de l'homme et des individus. C'est ce qui doit être fait. Et nos forces de défense et de sécurité, dont nous saluons ici leur engagement et leur bravoure, individuellement savent qu'ils sont une armée au service du peuple, une armée pour protéger la nation, une armée pour protéger les frontières et l'intégrité nationale. Donc la responsabilité est individuelle et elle est également collective. Sur ce plan, nous disons donc qu'effectivement la communauté internationale serait dans ses droits si elle gérait les questions de bafouement des droits de l'homme de manière équitable et claire et nette, parce que lorsqu'il y a eu le massacre de nos enfants à Kumba, je n'ai pas vu autant d'indignation lorsqu'on a parlé du cas de Garbou. Lorsque notre sœur Comfort Ayafon a été tuée, nous n'avons pas vu la même indignation, la même mobilisation, et les commanditaires de ceux-là sont connus. Pourquoi n'ont-ils pas été extradés? Pourquoi la même communauté internationale n'a-t-elle pas pris ses responsabilités en disant que les pays qui sont des exemples et des modèles de démocratie et du respect des droits de l'homme ne peuvent cautionner sur leur terre et abriter de manière impunément des individus qui continuent à encourager et à financer le terroriste au Cameroun. C'est là où nous disons que les appels interpellatifs de la communauté internationale dite, ou bien de demander à la communauté internationale de prendre ses responsabilités, ça doit être dans tous les sens possibles, parce qu'il n'y a pas d'être humain qui soit plus être humain que l'autre lorsque l'exaction ou bien la bavure vient de tel camp ou de tel autre.
Okay, Tamai Jarvis, this call on the international community to ensure that justice is done for both cases, wherever injustice or human rights abuses are committed. Is it possible? Should they be reminded of what they are supposed to be doing?
To say if they should be reminded, I think, of course, those are policies and procedures that must be taken as far as conflict is concerned. And sometimes you must officially give a letter of notification to show that at least there is a follow-up as to this level. Follow-up is very important, especially in conflict. And in what Mr. Jean-Claude just said, that when Florence Ayofor was killed, when the lady in Muyuka was killed, when other killings have been done by the separatists, we've not seen international community react. I want to disagree a bit with him because maybe he has not been conversant with the news, or probably he's not had a full understanding as to how the international community has been reacting. We all saw the international community reacting firmly, especially the office, especially no, you are talking about reaction, you are not talking about arrest. Especially when we saw the killing at Flores Ayafo, the beheading of Flores Ayafo, we saw how it was condemned by the United Nations embassy, by the US embassy in Yaoundé, and other United Nations agencies condemned that brutally. We saw how they condemned the killing of Muyuka, and we saw how they condemned the killing of the students in Kumba, and we've seen how they have been condemning. Now, the Stand-Up for Cameroon has the obligation as an organization to call for international community to take action in Cameroon. Remember that, Mr. Liu, for international community to react, there must be that call of action. Yes, they have the ability to react, but that call of action must come from the home country, and that call of action doesn't give them that prerogative, that power to directly interfere into the state affairs, because that state is bound by its territoriality and by its constitution and by default. So if they are coming in, there are other areas that they could be coming in. What could be the areas that they could be coming in? Either targeted sanction, and what will give them the legitimacy, Mr. Liu, for them to come in? It is that letter that will give them the legitimacy that on so and so date we received this letter from Cameroon. On this day we received this letter from Cameroon. On this day we received this letter from Cameroon.
Is that what Stand-Up for Cameroon is asking?
Yes.
It's asking on the international community to take their responsibility.
To take their responsibility. Yes. And that international community need a reference letter to act upon. They cannot act within themselves. You need a backup to come and react. Because if
no, but we have seen the US Senate ask the international community to take action. We've seen the European Union Parliament do same. Now you talking.
No, they were not doing that out of the basis that they just got up and say it. They must have a letter from that country affected. Now they are deliberating on the letter, on the evidences.
Are you saying that the Cameroon government has not written to these instances?
No, they have. Your question was, why should that? Is it the international community must react only upon letters, or can they not take a responsibility? You cannot take a responsibility without a reference letter. Under what basis are you taking the responsibility? Under what mandate are you taking the responsibility? How do you justify your spendings from your donors? You justify your spending for. How do you justify the mission? How do you justify the mission allowances? You justify the mission allowances by stating that we have received this from government of Cameroon. We have received this from an NGO in Cameroon. We have received it. Let's talk about it. This is what is happening in Cameroon based on this. So we have the powers now to react, either by targeted sanctions, either by recommending competent bodies to arrest those committing crimes or acts. So there are a lot of international community or organizations don't just react based on what they see from the news or evidences that people tell them. Sometimes they react. You ask yourself, why is it that after 1994, after the genocide in Rwanda, the international community said never again will this happen? But we've seen a lot of this happening. Why haven't you asked, why is this happening? Because there are policies and procedures. Before, it's like we are working here. For us to react to a complaint, we must have that complaint in hand so that we justify a mission. Remember that there are those who are called the category of reactions. Now, the international community react based on category. And one other category is that they must have documented facts. If there must be a direct intervention, Mr. Leona, to breach the territorial power of a state, it must be backed by a consistent number of evidences that we have received about 30 letters from Cameroon indicating that we should intervene. And that is why we are intervening directly. So there are steps you must follow. It's not just like you see something happening, you just go in directly. No. Where are you going there?
Okay. Dr. Michael, do you think that after this letter or after the presentation of these findings, something is going to change? And what should be a follow-up to the presentation of this report?
Well, this report is just like any other. Many other organs have written reports. Human Rights Watch and all the other organs have written reports about Cameroon. But I don't even find that this is much more startling than the other report that have written about Cameroon. This is just like a reiteration of all the other letters other people have written. And of course, and we are finding this utterly interesting because it comes from an organ like the like the Stand Up for Cameroon, which of course is a welcome kind of a voice that and most importantly, when I was reading that report, I see one of the things that they actually emphasize on is that the report is actually for the national purpose. I mean,
the focus is not solely on
international community. It is focused nationally that we should take let somebody take his responsibility. And I was very interested about that fact that the Cameroon government needs to take up its responsibility to be able to end this thing. And it's a collective action. It's a collective action. Just as we were saying, the international community is deep in the politics of the UN, whereby things are done by voting. And the UN actually has its own judgment on what they think or on what level they think they can be able to intervene in a country. At what level of crisis, when the crisis reaches at one level before they intervene, they don't just come. And I think that they come based on the voting. And we have seen how it has been politicized. And this has actually not been able to hold because you find countries that have individual interests in the war that is going on, especially in Cameroon. We have countries that have economic interests and they will not want other countries, the UN to interfere. Secondly, we have had the UN that is actually staggering in terms of finance. They have had so much to chew in the world. And I was talking to somebody at the UN and he said, Cameroon is considered as one of those little problems that the UN should tackle at this moment because they have other countries that have big problems. So I think that we should not keep on thinking about the international community coming to salvage us out of this issue. We should know that this thing is first of all us. So I think reports have been written, the church in Cameroon has written, individuals have written, countries have also sent their own individual organs to be able to take reports, because when reports are written from the international community, it is because they have people on the ground. They do not depend on hearsay, and they do not depend only on the report of the government. Because they depend on the report of the government, they will never always act in an objective manner. So they make sure that they take all the reports and put on the table, and they are able to judge from there. But I think that this report from Stand Up Cameroon, all of us need to follow up that report. We have all been touched by the kind of things that they have enumerated, by the kind of killings, kidnappings, and all of those extrajudicial killing of elected officials. We even talk, a mayor was killed, like Prisley, John was killed. People killed, and nobody says anything about it. I think that all of us now need, this report is actually calling on all of us to see that how many more are we going to let go, that we're going to kill again before we sit down and actually dialogue and find a solution. The report is actually calling on, appealing to our consciences to know that we have gone one time too much and that we all need to come. And the report is actually targeting for now is that the government should take up its responsibility and call to order, because the government is able to. I don't think that it will be above the government to say we have stopped this thing, there's a ceasefire, all of us will come together and be able to organize a dialogue. So I'm happy that it's an eye-opener. It's a reiteration of what has been said, and repetition is for emphasis, and emphasis calls for action.
Ok. Monsieur Jean-Claude, est-ce que vous attendiez que le gouvernement réagisse après la publication de ce rapport hier? Et que les choses soient faites de concret en
matière d'amélioration des droits de l'homme, la question ou bien les questions de droits de l'homme. Non, les rapports des ONG dites de défense des droits de l'homme que nous commençons à... Oui, dites, parce qu'en réalité, parfois on a l'impression que ce sont des rapports commandés. Et à partir de ce moment-là, on se poserait bien la question de savoir pourquoi l'angle d'orientation des rapports dits des droits de l'homme est toujours axé sur un certain nombre de choses. Lorsqu'on a connu le phénomène, par exemple, des microbes à Douala, ça n'intéresse pas ces organisations des droits de l'homme. Lorsque on connaît des agressions, que ce soit dans nos villes ou dans nos métropoles, ça n'intéresse pas les associations des droits de l'homme. Lorsqu'il y a de la violence dans les foyers, et des femmes et tout. Ça n'intéresse pas ces organisations de droits de l'homme. Donc vous voyez que les droits de l'homme au sens de ces organisations non gouvernementales sont orientés parce qu'il faudrait qu'on ponde un rapport qui soit sensationnel, qu'on ponde un rapport qui peut aider ceux qui veulent s'en servir pour pouvoir peut-être venir dicter une nouvelle loi ou bien imposer un nouvel ordre de gouvernance dans notre pays. C'est pour cela que nous disons que nous, les rapports, nous les connaissons, mais nous savons très bien les orientations que le président de la République a déjà prises et a continué à prendre pour pouvoir continuer à améliorer les droits de l'homme dans notre pays. Vous savez que l'une des garanties de volonté publique et politique et gouvernementale d'amélioration des droits de l'homme, c'est la situation de la justice. C'est lorsque vous avez la possibilité que la justice vous sera rendue au nom du peuple.
Oui, mais est-ce que vous croyez que les Camerounais croient vraiment à la justice qui est servie au Cameroun aujourd'hui?
Oui, les Camerounais croient à la justice. La preuve en est que certains ne déplorent pas, ne disent pas souvent que le justice ne vous sera pas rendue. Ils disent tout simplement qu'il faudrait qu'on améliore au niveau des procédures, au niveau des lenteurs judiciaires. Mais nous connaissons également les sources et qui ne relèvent pas forcément seulement du problème des magistrats. Ça relève parfois aussi qu'il faudrait qu'on continue à augmenter le niveau de recrutement, à améliorer les infrastructures, et ainsi de suite. Donc, c'est pour dire que les Camerounais ont foi en leur justice. Les Camerounais ont foi en nos institutions judiciaires. La preuve en est que même dans le cadre de la gouvernance des collectivités territoriales décentralisées, vous voyez très bien que l'arbitrage a souvent été fait avec les tribunaux administratifs.
Nous allons terminer l'émission à ce niveau. We're going to end at this level. We had some issues with some quarters that did not have sound, but we hope that it has been regulated. Everything was okay on social media. We are glad to be part of the show this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kum. And thanks to all those who took our time to participate. We may always disagree to agree for the good of Cameroon. I want to say special good evening to the Bishop of Buea Diocese, Michael Bibi, and of course the President of the Catholic Universities of Buea, Professor Victor Jesus Go. And why not all those who are supporters of the Lions and those who equally don't support the Lions? Together, Cameroon will stand, and Cameroon will always remain Cameroon.
Okay. Doctor, thank you for coming.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure. It will always be a pleasure for me to be here.
Monsieur Jean-Claude, merci d'être passé par ici ce soir.
Le RDPC vous remercie une fois de plus de l'avoir convié sur votre plateau et nous serons tous mobilisés samedi pour la victoire de nos Lions à Prime pour nous apporter cette troisième place qui est une place honorable et ils peuvent compter sur nous. Le peuple camerounais sera là en fonction de la disponibilité de nombre de places du stade pour pouvoir observer les mesures barrières. Nous serons là au nombre souhaité.
Okay, we also want to thank you all who took time off to watch the program. Thank you to the producers. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.